Thanks, Alex, and thank you to LegalCheck for the opportunity, which I really appreciate. I'm conscious that I'm the last speaker in the segment and that time is short, and so I'll move through my material in a brisk way. I've been asked to sketch out some of the experiences of the Australian College working with online delivery technologies these past 2 decades. I do that from the perspective of an executive leader rather than a leader of education technology. And so a little different, I guess, from the perspective of the earlier speakers. In order to do that, I provide a little context in terms of some basic organisation metrics. Thanks, Alice, for the next slide. The college in Australia and New Zealand operates out of 8 locations across 10 jurisdictions in the ANZPAC region. Each year we enrol about 6,000 students in our pre-admission programs, which we generally offer as graduate diplomas, and around 1,500 students each year into our master's programs, the Masters of Applied Law. The vast majority of all of that is delivered online and has been for many, many years. Pre-admission training requirements in Australia vary a bit between jurisdictions, but generally comprise about 600 equivalent full-time hours of instruction and about the same number of hours in supervised work experience. And so if you do the arithmetic, 600 by 6,000, there's some millions of hours involved in individual online learning in our overall regime. And for a bit more arithmetic, about 75,000 lawyers have been through the programs in the last 20 years. Now, I mention these things to make the point that for us, in imagining online learning at various stages, the technologies which support large-scale administration across multiple jurisdictions have been every bit as important as those which actually support the learning program. And indeed, in our view, more challenging and certainly more expensive. This kind of diversified multi-jurisdictional operation is possible because of what we did in 1997 when we created our first electronic professional program, the EPP, quaint old terminology. We used CAI, Computer Assisted Instructions, some in the audience might remember. Now, at that time, there were no precedents to follow, no particular examples of success anywhere, particularly not where skills training was concerned. And so that gave the college the most wonderful opportunity to make every mistake in the book, which we then proceeded to do, sometimes quite spectacularly, over the ensuing years. But 23 years later, we feel that we've learned a lot along the way and hopefully can share some of that today. This was never more plain than when COVID-19 arrived in early 2020. Because of our well-established systems thinking and because of our data capability, we were able pretty quickly to identify every person-to-person engagement in every learning event in every course for the ensuing 6 months. We also knew in a detailed way the mechanics of how each job related to that and how it could be substituted from home in each case. And so we made a decision to go to an entire off-site model on Sunday, 15th March in the afternoon, and by close of business Friday the 20th, we were 100% locked down in a fully timetabled 6-month plan, fully funded, with all 600 jobs relocated and safe, and pretty much a seamless experience for the many thousands of students involved across various programs. So I don't think we knew ourselves until that time just how ideally well suited our way of thinking about education operations was for the sorts of challenges now in the world around us. The next slide is the Backend Ecosystem that enabled that to happen. There's 23 years of development in this. The college has moved through various stages of platform and associated technologies more or less generationally over the period. However, those with knowledge and interest in this area are going to see pretty quickly that there's nothing particularly remarkable about it. Canvas, Salesforce, all the componentry is fairly orthodox. It's not what you do with the component. It's not what componentry you have, but what you do. As to the front end, I'm often asked about this. What are the particular technologies we use to deliver our programs? And I always say, well, we call them teachers. The lesson we've learned and relearned over and over is that skilled teachers make the difference. The content and communication of the technologies around them are important, and the other multiple student-to-student interactions are important, but it's the teachers that are absolutely essential to the outcome. We build the technology around the teacher, not vice versa. If you lose sight of that, and I confess that we have from time to time in our history, well, that's big trap falling. In the middle, which is the next slide, of the technologies and the teachers, hopefully some learning happens. And here we come to another important thing we've learned and relearned along the way, and also seems pretty basic. The curriculum happens in the mind of the student. It does not happen in a sweep of computer-generated gee-whizzery, nor does it happen in fancy graphic layouts of deeply detailed documentation with boxes and buttons to click. We spent years and years stripping out all that kind of clutter. The curriculum happens in the mind of the student, where clutter, complication and density are the enemies of learning, especially in an online environment, which is very different to a classroom learning environment pedagogically. Now, guided by this core principle, it seems to me the college has got three things more or less right, which I'd encourage others to look at. Firstly, our content warehouse. The huge advantage of distance learning of all kinds, and here I reflect on Sam's comments. It forces the subject owner to get organised and to be very clear about learning objectives. If those objectives are stated at the right level of abstraction and as part of a sensible hierarchy, they can be interpreted in different ways for different audiences and can also operate as the main organising principle of the content warehouse itself. As I mentioned in an earlier slide, currently our standard pre-admission graduate diploma is offered in 140 different versions, customised by jurisdiction, firm size, practice style and other criteria. While we've got a special focus on the needs of the large commercial law firm sector, the warehouse lets us customise to multiple sectors, interpreted against common objectives. This is absolutely core to our whole approach. Learning replicates not only practice, but particular practices. Secondly, I think we've got the design more or less nailed. Sam, maybe not yet as sophisticated as some of what I heard from you, most impressive. What we have got right is something which I think about as our core competency. What we're good at is translating sometimes complex law and legal practice into simple, how-to-do-it steps of instruction. Now, that does not mean that course content is always simple. It's sometimes highly sophisticated, but the learning methodology is simple and clear. Centrally managed, systematic design of instruction. It's embedded in active learning. In all our courses, the learner is doing things, and the teacher is providing feedback on the doing. Chalk and talk is outlawed. These are law graduates after all. They know how to access relevant information where needed, particularly if it's carefully designed and pre-packaged, easily navigable across the system. This connects to the third aspect, our approach to the training and oversight of the teaching function itself. We are very specific about what we want them to do. One-on-one engagement with learners is not part of the teaching job, nor is it additional to the teaching job. It is the whole of the teaching job. It involves conversations with learners, and it's in those conversations that the curriculum comes to life in the mind of the student, and that's the point of the whole thing after all. Today's time frame is short, Chair, and I know my coverage has been very much once over, and once over lightly at a high level. For follow-up inquiries, please join us in the expo now coming up. I'm very much looking forward to it. The college is just delighted to have the opportunity to work with the legal profession in England and Wales on the challenges ahead in the SQE environment, and we put together a very short video to give you a taste of what we intend to do.
Law has historically been slow to change, but that's not sustainable anymore. The reason for that is because our clients are themselves changing.
While the legal profession works with that change, we as legal educators have to respond to that as well.
Business across every sector is being digitally transformed. That means new platforms, new technologies, new entrants to the markets. So lawyers have to respond to this.
So we'll be using digital technology. We'll be delivering personalised training programs straight to this. We're also going to be utilising mentors, experienced practitioners who, as in practice as supervisors, will be able to give you help and advice on your training. So imagine if you're a parent, or you're working part-time or seeking to qualify, or you're already working as a paralegal, we can shape training programs that fit around your work style and your lifestyle.
Thank you, Tony.
In that it prepares students for what's coming ahead. It's grounded and practical, but it's forward-looking and dynamic. And that's how the lawyers of the future are going to need to be.
Thank you very much.